My name is Jennivine Kwan. I'm Vice President of International Operations for the U.S. Green Building Council. Well, I think that green buildings is really one of those monumental moments in human history where we really have the opportunity to make a huge difference, a positive difference, not only on our environment, but really on our community and on the future of our children. And from a personal point of view, I am extremely excited because I have already seen that happen in my own personal life. And I feel that particularly for the youth of today, that green buildings is going to provide them with the opportunities to new jobs, the opportunities for new creativity and new innovation, and the opportunity to travel the world, that sort of global mobility that we all strive for, and really the option to be leaving our legacy, a positive legacy in mankind. So I think it's an exciting era for them. Green buildings is going to become a part of everyday life for them, which is going to enable them to push that line for green buildings even higher and higher, so that one day they are able to innovate something that we have not even yet dreamed of. Well, you know, all of us want to leave a legacy. All of us want a better future for our children. We want a better future even for ourselves at this point. And so it's important to keep the ideas clear and simple. And on top of it, the fact is that green buildings is not rocket science. It's very logical, it's very practical, it's very easy to understand. Like anything that's worthwhile, obviously you're going to have to put work into it. You're going to have to learn about something. And there's always a learning curve. It's harder at the beginning. But it's not so difficult. Everyone can understand it, and everyone can do those little things that are going to make a difference from their lives. I think that green buildings, like any other movement, it takes a series of characteristics of things in the market that come together at the right time in the right place. And I think for Serbia that's going to happen. Right now we're just on that cusp of that growth, both economic as well as in the construction industry, but there's a lot of youth in Serbia. What's their future going to be like? They have to have an industry that's going to be able to provide them with those jobs and mobility. So with all of those characteristics lining up, and the possibility that if we do it right, we're going to be able to really have a positive impact on the environment, I can definitely see Serbia being able to be a leader in green buildings. Basically, LEED, as you know, LEED is a voluntary rating system which helps people to make better decisions about the buildings that they build. Now, when we first started, we were ourselves in a real infancy stage where we're just learning. So we started with strategies, and that became one of the first versions of LEED. In 2009, we started to change our thinking to what do we want buildings to do? How do we want them to have less negative impact on the environment? But 2004 changes that concept even more. It goes from not just saying, what can we do to make buildings less bad, to what can we do to make buildings give back? And it's really that fundamental shift in thinking, that philosophy, that really changes or characterizes the difference between 2009 and 2004. So if you're looking at technical things as to how it's different, in version 4, you're going to start seeing more market sectors coming up, which are going to be focusing on things like retail or data centers, existing buildings for schools, as an example. It's also going to have higher thresholds in terms of technical vigor. So, as you know, when we upgrade the LEED rating system, we also will always upgrade the requisites that are inside LEED, because LEED is actually built on regulations. So the regulations are in place. We consider that the floor, but the floor is not good enough for us. LEED is a leadership tool, and that's why it must always be better than the floor. And as that floor rises through the years, when we start to do the next versions of LEED, we will also push our technical vigor higher. And so that's another major difference between 2009 and 2004. And I think finally we bring in a lot of different new concepts to the market. LEED, above all, is really a market tool because it is developed by the market for the market. It's written in a way that normal people like myself can understand, although of course implementation is difficult, but the understanding is not that difficult. And so we have tried to use the LEED rating system as a tool to bring new concepts in, such as the life cycle of a product, to start looking at materials not just from the selection of one material versus another material, but how do all the materials work together in a material cycle within a building so that it doesn't matter necessarily if you choose this one versus this one, but when you add them together, what happens? So I think that's one of the concepts, and of course that goes into things like environmental declaration, certificates and things like that. But also the other things that we're looking at is a lot more focus on human health and looking at ways that we can better talk about things like materials and chemicals and the things that go into it. So the concept of transparency of information to provide even more opportunities for people to really be making the right decisions about themselves. As I've said, LEED is a tool, right? So people have to first of all choose to use the tool. They have to feel that it's something that's really going to benefit them and really help them. So can we force people to do it? Absolutely not. But will people eventually come to that conclusion themselves? Yes. So one of the best ways to do that in every sector is to really have spokespeople, to have local leaders that have done it, they've experienced it, and so they can talk about a real experience. And on top of that, to also provide the opportunity for the public to really have a hands-on experience of green buildings themselves. That's why conferences like this are so important, because they enable people to have, a real-life experience about certain elements of green buildings. But that's also why we would encourage people who are building green buildings to open up their projects, let the public go in. That's why we encourage them to build in, as part of the LEED certification process for some of the credits, an education program for their staff as well as for the public. That is actually what's going to be the thing that changes public opinion and what changes the opinions of government leaders, of industry leaders. They have to see it for themselves. They have to really personalize it and understand it, that it's really them that makes decisions and that they really can make a positive impact. I'm very impressed. I've actually had contact with Serbia GBC now for a number of years, and last year I wasn't able to be here in person, so I had to do my presentation over video conference. But I've always wanted to come here because I know all of the hard work that's being done here, and it's so exciting to come and see so many different companies that are really focusing on certain elements of sustainability. It's also very encouraging to see a lot of young people here today, young people in fact who are volunteering their time, as well as young people here because they're curious. And it's that curiosity and that energy that's really going to be driving green buildings in Serbia. So I would say congratulations to the Serbia Green Building Council. They've done a wonderful job. And also, congratulations to all of the leaders in the country who have been very supportive of green buildings. One of the best pieces of advice that we can give all of us, ourselves, all over the world is dare to dream. Allow yourself to actually believe that something is possible. Because we know that in the history of mankind that it's the dreamers that have actually made something into reality. And I think that the same thing can happen with green buildings. We need more people that are not going to be limited by what they perceive to be rules, but that are seeing the potential and the opportunity to go beyond the rules and take that one step further and then even improve on it further. So I think that would be what I hope I would see much more in the market, is just to keep that open mind.